I'm going to attempt to go through a game turn. We're midway in a point in a Napoleonic game, and so we just wrapped up, but there's still some action that can be done. So in essence, what you've got here are these brown blocks, pieces of felt, are buildings. So they represent buildings. If an infantry unit is in a building, it takes one from the die roll of the opposing team firing at it. So that's good to be in a building. It's like you're in cover. It also blocks artillery. So if this unit was behind a building, you would not be able to shoot them. As it stands, the artillery can fire at them. So the first thing that happens is each person writes an order sheet. So the order sheet shows for each turn, charge. There's two sequences. So the first sequence, this unit, the first hussars, is a charge, then a move, fire for each consecutive unit. So the French player's writing his orders, and the English player is writing his orders. So this column, you'll see a comma separating each unit. So here's the first Belgian infantry, which are these guys. Their instructions on these two turns are to fire, and then the next turn they fire. And what that allows, some real chance in the game. You're making 2 turns worth of moves. Sometimes it can really get you in hot water. So let's go through a turn. So the first thing we do is we look and we see who's routed. So there's a unit over here of cavalry. I'll turn that. Those guys were routed in the last turn, and they have to roll for morale. So they typically would have to roll for a 7 or higher, but it's because they're routed and they have to roll for an 8 or higher. They rolled an 11, so they're no longer routed. So I turn this unit around. They can't do anything, this unit, but they survive. The die on the back says that out of the 12 soldiers there, 9 of those are casualties. So that unit has a very small power, only a power of 3 right now. There's no other routed unit. Oh, take that back. Here's a routed unit. So that unit of 24 has 9 casualties, so they have to roll a 7, which is because they have less than 50% casualties. Their roll is a 10. They turn around. They are no longer routed. They can come back into the action on the next turn. They've got a routing or a casualty rate of 9. So that's the first thing that has to be done. The second thing is any charges that are declared. So we look at the turn sheet. There are 2 charges for the British. This unit is charging and this unit is charging. For the French, there are no units charging. So let's start with the charges. You add a typical British infantry unit in a line can move 4 inches. If they were in column like this unit, stacked back and forth, they can move 6 inches. In a line, they move 4 inches, but to charge, they add 2 inches. So I take my ruler, and that unit can move 6 inches. So we move them here. That's a charge. We move this unit 6 inches. That's a charge. Those are the 2 charges that the British player has. So now we have to roll and make sure that these guys move their casualty figures up behind them. They have 4 casualties. They have 3. Each of these units has to roll a 7 to see if their morale stands and they are able to make the charge. They rolled a 7, they get to make the charge. These guys rolled an 8, they get to make the charge. Let's find out if this unit of 12 can stand. They have 50% of casualties because they used to have 2 bases We took one base off. That means they're 50%. So they have to roll an 8. They did not. Their route, they go back 4, 8 inches and are turned the other way. They routed. They couldn't stand. This unit is also at less than 50%, so they have to roll an 8. They rolled a 5. They routed. So they go back 4 and 4, double their regular movement. So this charge of British soldiers basically crushed the left flank of the French. And so they survived. Nobody fired at them. They won their morale. Now, no more charges. These soldiers I forgot to move. They actually moved up 4 inches. So now we resolve the firing. Didn't fire, didn't fire. These guys they're gonna fire, and they're gonna fire at these. So you take, this is a base of 24 with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 casualties. So that unit now has 24 minus 11 for their casualties, you see on the back. So 24 minus 11 is 30, 11, 22, 23. So this, or 13. So you roll the die, one die. They're firing short range, so +1. So 3 plus 1 is 4, because it's such short range. That's the casualty figure. So 4 times 13, that's the number of soldiers left in the unit. 4 times 13 equals 52. Then you divide that by 30. That's just the calculation for casualties. 1.7. So they rounded up 2 casualties. They had 3. We move this to a 5. Now their casualties are 5. This unit is firing at this unit. So they've got, that's a 12, because they're half of a unit of 24, minus 3, that's 9. So this unit firing at these guys in the house takes 1 off the die roll. So I rolled a 5. So 9 times 5 equals 45, divided by 30 equals 1.5, round up. This unit now adds 2 additional casualties. So this unit of 12 has 7 casualties. It really is only 5. Now this unit is firing at them. Once again, 12, no casualties. Firing -1 because they're in the building. They rolled a 3, -1 makes it a 2. So 2 times 24, the number of soldiers in this formation. 2 times 24 is 48, divided by 2, or divided by 30, I'm sorry, equals 6, 48 divided by 30 equals 1.6. So 2 additional casualties. So this unit of 12 now is 9. This unit is firing at them. 6-inch range is fine. -1 off the dice because they're in the building. They rolled a 2, 1. So that 1 is what they end up with. 1 times 30 is 30, so 1 more additional casualty. So 10. Now these guys started off, it's their turn to fire. They're going to fire at the open unit here. Before they took those casualties, I think they took 2 and 3. So I think they had 9 men in here. So they're going to fire 9 at this unit in the open. 3 times 9 is 27. So 27 divided by 30, rounded up, is 1. They inflicted 1 casualty on this unit. This unit, 24 strong, firing at this unit. These guys are in a building, so -1 off the die roll. They rolled a 5. 5 times 24 equals 120, divided by 30 equals 4. So this unit firing by them added 4 additional casualties. So that changes their casualties to 11 now. These guys are firing back at them. So before they had that additional 4, they had 10 casualties. So that 24 unit, or I'm sorry, they're in column. So this 24 minus, it was 10 at the time. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. So there's 7 firepower. They rolled a 1. 1 times 7. And it's actually, they're in a building, so 1 minus 1 is 0. No effect on the casualties here. Next is this unit firing at this unit. I'm sorry, these guys move, so they don't get to fire. This unit has a casualty of 4, so that's 20. Divided by 2, because they're in a column formation, is 10. They're firing at this unit, so they roll a dice. They roll it 4 times 10 is 40, divided by 30 makes a casualty of 1. So we're going to change them to 6. They have 9 casualties in that unit. The artillery here is going to fire. They have no casualties. 24 units, close range. So they add 1 to the die roll. They rolled a 5, plus 1 is 6. So your calculation is 6 times 24 equals 144 divided by 30. So 5 casualties, 4.8 equals 5 casualties. So we're going to add another 5 casualties to this unit. That unit totally has 11, 12, 13, 14. So they're down to the power of 10. This unit's going to fire at them. They have 3 casualties, so they're at 21. Firing regular range, no modifiers, but they divide it in half because they're in a column. So that's 10. So we're going to roll the die. They rolled a 6 times 10 is 60. Divided by 30 is, so that's 2 more casualties. So this unit here now has casualties of 16 from 24, so they're a power of 8. So they're pretty weak right now. And that's how a turn flows. So the second piece of that is now we look and see what the next orders are. You don't get to write orders because we're on the second phase of those orders. So there's no charges, only firing now on the French line, but there's still 2 more charges on the British lines. So these guys now are going to turn and charge here. These guys are going to move 6. There's nobody to hit, so they're charging into nothing. But these guys continue their charge, and they're going to show a charge on this unit. So move their casualties with them. So the first thing these guys have to do, you resolve your charges first. The first thing we have to find out is, do these guys remain rallied and strong enough to make the charge? They don't have 50% casualties, so they are going to roll a 7. They roll an 8, they're fine. This unit has 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 from 24. They're above 50%, so that means it's not an 8, it's a 7 for them. They rolled a 9, they stand. Those 2 are going to fight. Okay. Now, firing, no firing. These guys just came out of route. They're going to fire long range at these guys. So they've got a power of 10, 11, 12. They've got a power of 12. They're going to roll 1 dice, long range, minus 1. They rolled a 5, minus 1 because the range is a 4. 12 for the unit times 4. 12 times 4 equals 48. Divided by 30 is 1.6. So these guys took 2 casualties. So I changed them to a 6 now. This unit is charging into them, so they get a +2 to the die roll for their charge into these guys, and their morale held. So as they charge into them, they inflict 3 + 2 is 5 times 19, which is their power. 19 times 5 is 95 divided by 30. So 3 additional casualties. That changes this to a 6, 12, 13, 14. So they were 12. They get to fire at these guys before you inflict that casualty. So 12, short range +1. 12 times 6 equals 72 divided by 30, 2.4. So add 2 more casualties to this guy, giving them a casualty rate of 7. So they're in battle right now. Firing here, 9, firing into this unit. They're in cover in a house. They rolled a 2, so it's -1 for the cover. So 1 times 9 is 9, no casualties, ineffective. This unit has got 24 minus 3 is 21, -1 off the die roll because those guys are in cover. So 1 times 21 rounded up means they take 1 additional casualty. So they're now they have 1. So these guys are going to fire here. At these units in the open with 2 because you take it before the casualty. They're in the open, so no modifier. 3. Actually, I'm going to add 1 because it's close range. So that's a 4 times 2 is 8. No casualties. Can't divide that by 30. This unit, 24, is going to fire into this unit. Let's see, that's actually 12. So we're going to roll, these guys are in cover, -1 off the die roll. 3 minus 1 is 2. So 2 times 12 is 24. So we add 1 to their casualties. So that's 12 now. So I'm going to take that off and take these guys away. So now this unit is 12. This unit's going to fire these guys in the open. They've got 24 minus 16 is 8 in the open, no modifier. So 5 times 8 is 32. Is that right? 5 times 8 is 40 divided by 30. So that's 1.3. So these guys take just 1 casualty, changing them from a 4 to a 5. These guys, they took 1 casualty, so they had 24 minus 4, they had 20 before they took that casualty. Normal range in the open. 3 times 30 or times 20 is 60. So that's 2 additional casualties. Taking each of these up to a 6. 6, now they're 18. Now the cannon's going to fire. Short range canister is going to add 1 to the die roll. So roll the dice. 4, 5. So 5 times 24 equals 120 divided by 30 is 4 additional casualties. And then lastly, this unit of 21 divided by 2 is 10. 4 times 10 is 40, so that's 1 additional casualty. So now this unit is down to 1 man. So we're going to take a piece off, take 12 away, and this unit is down to a power of 1. They're just about decimated. So now you've seen a complete single turn. Now granted, and remember, this is really when everybody's mixed up, a lot of this, as the board moves, it That's where a lot of your tactics happen. But in this turn, the British made a charge and broke the flank, so now they are really mixing it up. They probably will rout these guys. That was probably the decisive turn here. The British swept up, they crushed the flank of the British, or the French. Their firepower crushed the other flank of the French. This unit's down to one man. This is a strong unit, but they are not enough to hold back all these forces coming at them. So at the end of that turn, that really was made it a decisive British victory. That unit's only got one guy left. That they'll retreat. These guys are almost done. These guys are routed. So that's it. That's how game turn goes.